Hey guys, in this video we're going to be looking at chapter 5 of the Ecce Romani textbook titled Marcus to the Rescue. In this chapter you're going to be reading about how Cornelia and Flavia are walking through the woods when a wolf appears, and Mark is going to save the day when Sextus is too afraid to. And the grammar for this chapter is all about the complementary infinitive, which has to do with verbs again, so we'll be drawing upon our knowledge from the past couple of chapters about verbs. The complementary infinitive is a really important idea in Latin that gets a little more complicated as we move through the book, but it starts in this chapter, so it's really important to get a good foundation moving forward. As always, we want to start with the vocabulary, and chapter 5 has some really good Latin words that give us important English derivatives. So, as always, the key to understanding the chapter and the story is to memorize the vocabulary. So let's start by looking at the word dies, which means day in Latin. And this has a bunch of useful English derivatives, including diary, journal, journey, meridian, and dismal. Now, if you look at all 5 of these, they have to do with the idea of a day. So a diary is something that you write in daily. The same goes for a journal. It's usually a daily writing activity. And if we look at the word dismal, this is actually a compound of dies malus, which means bad day in Latin. And if you think of the meaning of dismal in English, you can tell it's still holding on to that Latin meaning. Now, for the other words, such as diary and journal, you can see that in the Romance languages, this word has been preserved in words like the Italian giorno, and French jour, and Spanish dia. They all mean day, and you can see where their roots are coming from by this Latin word. Rivus is a word in Latin that means stream or river, and the English equivalent comes right from this word, where we get river. Frīgidus is an adjective that means cold, and you can see the English derivative of frigid is right in the word, so it's talking about something that's very cold. Errant is a verb that in Latin means they wander, and in English we get words such as erratic, errant, erroneous, and error. And when we say wander, it can also mean, to go astray, as in wandering to the wrong answer, if you think of an error. And if you think of someone as being erratic, it means they're wandering all over the place. They don't have one set path. So we call them erratic. It's coming from this word errare, which means to wander. Vult in Latin is a verb that means he or she wants. And we get a few English derivatives out of this, such as volition, voluntary, volunteer, benevolent, and malevolent. And they all have to do with wishing or wanting. So if you talk about someone doing an action of their own volition, it means by their own will. They wanted to do it. The same goes for voluntary and volunteer. It's something you want to do, not something that you're being made to do. With benevolent and malevolent, if you're a benevolent person, it almost means that you're wishing well for others. Same thing with malevolent. You're wishing the opposite. You're wishing bad things on people. But they all have this root of wanting. The verb respondet in Latin means he or she responds, and from this in English we get derivatives such as respond, response, responsive, responsibility, and correspond. And you can see that in all 5 the spelling is maintained, as is the meaning. They all have to do with responding. From the Latin word lupus, which means wolf, we get lupine in English, which holds the same meaning. If someone or something is described as lupine, it means they look or act like. Statim is a word in Latin that means immediately, and from this we get the phrase stat, which really isn't an English word, it's just a shortened form of statim, which means immediately. And you'll hear this in a hospital setting if a doctor says, I need something stat. He's meaning that he wants it immediately. It has the exact same meaning in English as in the Latin. Auxilium is a word that means help, and in English we get the word auxiliary out of this. And it's holding on to basically the same spelling and the same meaning as well. Clāmor is a great noise or shout in Latin, and from this we get the same English word of clamor, and it holds the same spelling and it's the exact same meaning as well. Petit means he or she seeks or looks for, and from this we get quite a few English derivatives, including appetite, compete, impetuous, and petition. And all of them have this idea of longing or searching for something. So if you have an appetite, you're hungry, you're looking for food. And the word petition in English holds basically the same spelling and meaning. If you're having someone sign a petition, it means you're looking for support for a cause that you have. You're looking for those signatures, or you're looking to change something. It's still holding that same meaning as petit, which means he seeks. From repellit, which means he or she repels, we get the words repel and repellent in English. And again, they're holding on to the same spelling and meaning as the Latin. They both mean to drive something or push something away or repel something. From adveniunt, we get the English derivatives of adventure, advent, and avenue. Now, adveniunt is a verb that means they reach or they arrive at, and you can see how that relates to an adventure, which is something, when you go off on a journey and you eventually arrive at your destination. That word adventure is coming from the same root. Timet is a word in Latin that means he or she fears, and this shows up in English in the words timid, timorous, and intimidate. They all have that root of fear in them. So if someone is timid, it means they're always afraid of something. And if you intimidate someone, it means you're making them afraid. So you can see that root is maintained in these words. This brings us to the grammar of Chapter 5, which is the complementary infinitive. And as we're going to see, an infinitive is a form of a verb, so we're going to have to bring back our verb endings and knowledge from the past couple chapters in order to understand this. But this is something that a knowledge of English grammar will help you with, because we use this exact same construction in everyday English. To start, we have to ask ourselves, what are infinitives? And in this chapter, we're going to be introduced to the verb wollt, which means he or she wants. And so you might come across a phrase such as sextus wollt, which means Sextus wants. The problem with this, though, is in how we translate it. If you take sextus wollt and translate it to sextus wants, you have an incomplete thought. You're going to be left asking yourself, Sextus wants what? The answer to that question is where the complementary infinitive comes into play. Just like in English, we finish the phrase Sextus wants by using the form of a verb called the infinitive. An infinitive is the form of the verb that we translate to blank, as in to do something. In Latin, we can recognize the infinitive by its ending of re. So if we go back to our sentence of Sextus wollt, or Sextus wants, we would ask ourselves, he wants what? The answer might be something such as dormire, meaning he wants to sleep. This part, dormire, is the infinitive, and it's a complementary infinitive in this case. We recognize the infinitive because of the re in dormire, and also we see how it's translated into English. It's not just sleep or he sleeps, it simply means to sleep. These are called complementary infinitives because they complement or complete another verb. So for instance, in our sentence, Sextus wants, dormire, meaning to sleep, is completing the thought. Sextus wants to sleep. So just a quick recap. Infinitives end in re in Latin. That's the easiest way to recognize them. They will be a verb that ends in re. We translate them to do something, meaning, to blank. And they often go with another verb which is not an infinitive, such as I want to sleep. The to sleep in that sentence is the infinitive, while the want is not. They go together. To sleep is finishing the thought of what I want. These verbs that go with complementary infinitives in Latin include wollt, volo, nolo, paras, and potest. These 5 we're going to learn in the chapter, and we'll be learning many more as we go. So let's take a look at an example sentence. Lupus sextum in arbore conspicere non potest. The first question we want to think about is, where is the non-infinitive verb? And if we look at the sentence, the only verb here that is not in the infinitive is potest, meaning he is not able. The next question is, who or what is performing the action? So you have to ask yourself, who is not able? And you're looking for a word that's going to be a subject. So in Latin, it will end in either us, a, or an r. Those are the 3 options we've seen so far. In this case, it's the word lupus, or the wolf. So it says the wolf is not able. The next question we ask is there a complementary infinitive? Meaning, is there a Latin verb that ends in re that's completing the thought of non-potest. So you're saying the wolf is not able to do what? And in this case, we can spot the infinitive right here, conspicere. He is not able to catch sight of something. Now we ask ourselves, is there a direct object? Because the infinitive can take a direct object, and we'll be learning about this a lot more in the next couple chapters, but you always look for that direct object. And in this case, we have it. It's sextum, and we know it's a direct object because of that M ending. It's a singular direct object. And it's going with the infinitive, conspicere. This means that non-potest is an intransitive verb. It does not have a direct object that goes with it. Even though there's a direct object in the sentence, it's not going with non-potest. When we put it all together, we can translate this sentence. The wolf is not able to catch sight of Sextus in the tree. So just a helpful hint. Whenever you have a complementary infinitive in a Latin sentence, the verb that is not the infinitive that goes with it will always be an intransitive verb. So if you think to our last sentence, non-potest will always be an intransitive verb there. And the reason is, when you have a complementary infinitive, the infinitive is the word going with non-potest. There is no direct object to go with it. If there's a direct object in the sentence, it's probably going with the infinitive verb. This is a complex idea that we really want to keep track of, and this is where marking up core elements will really help you out. You want to keep track of which word and which verb in particular the direct object is going with. That will help you translate these sentences.